Hello there and welcome along. The Gardener Ben here with your next rose review. Now you're going to have to forgive me as I squint and make myself feel very uncomfortable looking into this very hot sunshine today to bring you today's review, but I wanted to bring this one in as much of outdoor characteristics as at all possible because this particular rose is incredibly popular with many of you, especially of those of you joining from America. This is bred and introduced by David Austin Roses in 2001. This is Comet de Champagne or Comet de Champagne, depending on how you want to pronounce it. This is realistically the forefather of many of the roses that we now know and love within the David Austin collection. This particular rose making up the heritage, for instance, Dannahue, Buttercup and Ny Bevan within the David Austin collections. This is a substantial rose reaching around 4 feet by 4 feet. And realistically, I was supposed to bring you this particular review this time last year, but this rose was a little bit shy to flower. So now in its second year, it's really starting to find its feet and really starting to establish itself nicely. This is a particularly thorny plant. I'm going to cut some blooms and bring them really close to the camera for you. Hopefully it doesn't bite me in the process, but it does have a very, very high thorn count. So it is going to be marked today with a high thorn count, although the piece of growth I've picked isn't particularly bad. I'm going to bring this piece to the camera. Look at the thorns on that. You can see where Dannahue, brand new from David Austin Roses, is getting those thorns from. It comes from its parent plant. This particular one, very, very thorny. Opening flowers from a deep, rich apricot colour. You can see there in the bright sunshine. I'll bring those other ones close in for you as well. A rich, deep golden apricot blushed with small amounts of peach will slowly fade out to this very, very heavy apple blossom white, little bits of apricot and peach still toned in there. That porcelain colour, very, very similar to Desdemona from David Austin Roses, also heavily related to this particular plant. You can see that porcelain white really radiating from the bloom. A really nice upward facing flower which is loosely formed. It is fully double, but there's plenty of room there for a pollinator to get into, realistically meaning this rose has multiple uses in the garden. Not only is it adored by flying pollinators such as bumblebees and hoverflies, but also goes on to produce really great hips come the back end of the season as well. So this particular plant will start flowering in late June and March all the way forward with substantial bunches of flowers all the way through to the very, very end of September and into October, where if you leave it dead-headed in the sort of the back parts of August and September, these swellings at the very back of the flowers will actually form really nice bright red hips in autumn, so through to November and into December. Fragrance wise, this particular rose is musk based. The fragrance is light, very, very heavy on the notes of honey and pollen. There is a small amount of citrus there as well, but it's not particularly heavy. On this particular rose, I'm going to be grading this one with a 3 for fragrance rating. It's going to be marked with a high thorn count. Thorns are present in all parts of the flower. Disease resistance, this one is going to be scored with a very good solid 6 out of 10 for disease resistance. Some other nice characteristics with this particular rose, much like its now baby that is produced, Dannahue, produces really lovely burgundy red flower tips and new growth. So very, very early on in the season, the growth will be flushed with burgundy and red. So there is a high thorn count in all parts of the plant. Foliage wise, it's very similar to other roses bred at the same time as this particular rose. Very, very broad, very, very highly textured and deeply crinkled and crunkled. This is very much like other roses within the collection with foliage like this, like eglantine, from a very similar point in time for the David Austin breeding program. Very, very coarse, very, very leathery, dark green, and always takes on this sort of crunkled, very highly textured look. But a fabulous rose coming up to around 4 feet by 4 feet. It does produce a very substantial sized plant. Flowers are produced in large flushes. This, I say, will flower for weeks and weeks, almost months on end, producing large quantities of flowers which change different in different colors in different stages, but very much like, for instance, Ny Bevan, which this particular plant has shied in the future. Flowers aren't particularly long-lived, and that's because they're open formatted and are very, very easily visited by pollinators. You can see lovely collections of golden stamens right at the very center, and other flowers like this one here already going over. So simply dead held those out the way and let the flowers continue you, but loads more to come on this particular rose. It's really getting itself into its stride. Now we're in the later part of June. It's going to march all the way through to the very, very first frosts in September and October, producing plenty of flowers. So this very nice variety, but responsible for bringing us some of the wonderful varieties that we now grow, but very similar to Dannahue, very similar to Jude the Obscure, and Buttercup and Ny Bevan in the flower texture, that lovely iridescent glowing nature shining out from those petals, meaning that color radiance out. Again, picking up the same sort of peachy tones that you'll get from Molyneux from David Austin roses, very, very later on in the season as the temperatures start to cool down as well. This one is Comet de Champagne from David Austin roses, a really, really lovely variety that you should look out for. The forefather and OG rose really that's brought us some really, really lovely ones in the future. I hope to see you again soon. Take good care now. Bye bye.